The metal chair felt cold against Kyle Vorthak's chitinous skin. Heavy restraints held his arms and legs in place. The white walls of the detention room hurt his eyes. Everything in this human ship was too bright, too clean, too small for his large frame. Captain Lee Hyun walked into the room. The human was shorter than Kale by 2 feet, with dark hair and calm eyes. He carried a small device in his hand and sat down across from the alien warrior. Behind him, a human female entered. She had long black hair tied back and wore a white coat. "I am Captain Lee Hyun," the man said in slow, clear words. "This is Dr. Park Soo. She studies alien biology. We want to talk with you about the war." Kyle laughed. The sound was deep and harsh. "You think I will tell you our secrets, little human? Your species has been in space for less than 50 years. We have been warriors for 1,000. Lee Hyun did not look angry or scared. He just nodded and touched his device. "We do not want your secrets. We want to understand what happened during the battles. What you saw." "What I saw?" Kyle's eyes glowed red in the bright light. "I saw your people die. I saw your cities burn. That is what war is." Dr. Park Soo made notes on her own device. She watched Kale with interest, not fear. This bothered him more than anger would have. "Tell us about Seoul," Lee Hyun said quietly. Kale's confidence dropped a little. Seoul. Even saying the name made his chest feel tight. Seoul was nothing special. Just another human city to conquer. "But it took 3 weeks, Lee Hyun said. "Your invasion plan said 2 days. "Plans change during war," Kale said quickly, too quickly. He could hear the weakness in his own voice. Lee Hyun leaned forward. "What changed? What made it take so long?" Kale stared at the human captain. The man's face was patient, almost kind. It reminded Kale of the faces he had seen during the Seoul battle. Faces that should have shown fear or anger. Instead, they had shown something else, something that still gave him nightmares. "Your people do not fight like others," Kale said, slowly. "Most species, when they see they cannot win, they surrender. They try to save what they can. But humans—" "What about humans?" Dr. Park Soo asked. Kale closed his eyes. The memories came back like a bad dream. "Humans do not know when they are beaten. We had better weapons. We had better ships. We had more soldiers. But you kept fighting anyway." "That made you angry?" Lee Hyun asked. "No," Kyle said, opening his eyes. "It made us worried. In 1,000 years of war, we learned that all species follow the same rules. When they cannot win, they stop fighting. But humans acted like losing was impossible." Lee Hyun and Dr. Park Soo shared a look. The captain made a note on his device. "Tell us more about Seoul," Lee Hyun said. "What happened on the first day?" Kyle did not want to remember, but the words came out anyway. "We came from the sky in our dropships, 50,000 soldiers. The best weapons in the galaxy. Seoul should have fallen in hours." "Should have," Dr. Park Soo repeated. "But it did not." "No." Kyle's voice got quieter. "Your military was small. Maybe 5,000 soldiers in the whole city. We had them surrounded. We had air control. We had everything." "So what went wrong?" Lee Hyun asked. Kale was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice shook a little. "Nothing went wrong with our plan. The problem was, your people did not follow the rules of war." "What rules?" When soldiers are outnumbered 10 to 1, they retreat. When civilians see armies fighting, they hide or run away. When cities are attacked, the defenders try to save the important buildings and people. Kyle looked directly at Lee Hyun. Your people did none of these things. Dr. Park Soo stopped writing. What did they do instead? Everything became a weapon, Kyle said. Every building became a fortress. Every civilian became a soldier. Every street became a trap. He paused. And worst of all, every defeat became a lesson. Lee Hyun raised an eyebrow. A lesson? When we destroyed one of your defense positions, instead of being scared, your soldiers would study how we did it. Then they would make their other positions stronger. When we used a new weapon, instead of running away, your people would try to capture it and learn how it worked. That bothers you? Dr. Park Soo asked. Kale looked at her like she had asked why fire was hot. Of course it bothers me. In normal war, when you show your enemy a new weapon, they become afraid. Fear makes them weak. But humans became excited, like we were giving them presents. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lee Hyun made more notes on his device. There was one moment, Kale said suddenly. On the third day of the battle, we had cornered a group of your soldiers in a subway station. 20 humans against 200 of us. They were out of ammunition. No way to escape. Any other species would have surrendered. What did the humans do? Lee Hyun asked, though his voice suggested he already knew. They smiled, Kyle whispered. 20 humans about to die, and they smiled at us. Then they used the subway train itself as a weapon. Somehow they made it explode just as our soldiers entered the tunnel. Dr. Park Soo looked up from her notes. All 20 humans died. Yes. But they took 60 of our warriors with them. And the explosion damaged our communications equipment. Equipment we had been using to coordinate attacks across the whole city. Kale shook his head. 60 trained warriors dead. Our communications down for hours. All because 20 humans decided that dying was not enough. They had to win while dying. Is that when you knew the war would not be easy? Lee Hyun asked. Kale laughed, but there was no humor in it. Captain after soul, I knew this would not be a war at all. Wars have rules. Wars have limits. Wars have endings that both sides can accept. And this was different? This was humans showing the galaxy that they do not accept any limits, not even death. Kyle looked at both humans in the room. Do you understand what that means to other species? We have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how species behave when they are losing, but humans act like they have never lost anything in their entire history. Lee Hyun closed his device and stood up. We will continue tomorrow, Kale Vorthak. Thank you for talking with us. As the humans prepared to leave, Kale called out. Captain, Lee? Yes? Why are you not afraid of me? I have killed hundreds of your kind. Lee Hyun looked back at the alien warrior. His face was still calm, still patient. Because, Kyle, you are not our enemy anymore. You are our teacher. Teacher? You are teaching us how other species fight wars. That will help us be ready for the next species that tries to attack Earth. Kyle felt cold despite the warm air in the room. Next species? Lee Hyun smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it made Kale's skin crawl. Did you think you would be the last to try? The door closed behind the humans, leaving Kale alone with his thoughts. For the first time since his capture, he felt truly afraid. Not for himself, but for any species that might be foolish enough to threaten humanity in the future. They would not just face the humans who had fought the Nethys Empire. They would face the humans who had learned from fighting the Nethys Empire. That thought kept him awake all night. The next day, Captain Li Hyun returned to the White Room. This time, he brought a large screen with him. Dr. Park Soo followed behind, carrying her usual devices for taking notes. Kale Vorthak had not slept well. The alien warrior's red eyes were darker than before. He watched the humans set up their equipment without speaking. "Today we want to hear more about Seoul," Li Hyun said as he turned on the screen. "We want to understand exactly what happened." "Why?" Kyle asked. "You were there. Your people know what happened." "We know what happened from our side," Dr. Park Soo said. "We want to know what you experienced." Kale stared at the blank screen. Images from the Seoul battle played in his mind like a bad movie he could not turn off. "You have to understand," Kale began slowly. "The Nethys Empire had conquered 47 worlds before Earth. We knew how to take cities. We had done it hundreds of times." Li Hyun touched his device and pictures appeared on the screen. Satellite images of Seoul before the attack. The city looked peaceful from space. "Seoul was supposed to be easy," Kyle continued. "Big city, but not heavily defended. Our intelligence said your military was weak, primitive weapons, no real space defenses." He laughed bitterly. "Intelligence? We thought we understood humans." "What was your plan?" Dr. Park Soo asked. "Simple. Drop soldiers into the city center, control the government buildings, cut off communications. Most cities surrender within hours when you do this correctly." The screen showed new images. Nethys, drop ships falling from the sky like metal rain. Each ship was bigger than a human building. "I was in the first wave," Kyle said, his voice getting quieter. "Squad leader. 50 warriors under my command. We landed in what you call Gangnam District. Wide streets, tall buildings, perfect for our vehicles." Li Hyun made notes as Kale spoke. "What happened when you landed?" "Nothing at first. That should have been our first warning. When we conquered other worlds, people would run and scream when they saw our ships. But in Seoul, humans just stopped and watched us land. Like they were curious instead of afraid." Dr. Park Soo looked up from her, writing. "That worried you?" "It should have. But we were confident. Overconfident." Kale closed his eyes. "Commander An Jae was the human in charge of Seoul's defense. We had studied him. Good soldier, but no experience fighting aliens. We thought he would try to defend the city center, like most commanders do." "But he did not?" Li Hyun asked. "No. Instead of meeting us in battle, he disappeared. His soldiers disappeared. The whole human military just vanished into the city." Kyle opened his eyes. "Do you know how frightening it is when your enemy refuses to fight you directly?" The screen showed street maps of Seoul. Red dots marked where Nethys forces had landed. Blue dots showed human defensive positions, but the blue dots were scattered and kept moving. "For 6 hours we controlled the streets," Kale said. "We took the government buildings. We set up communication blocks. We did everything perfectly. But something felt wrong." "Wrong how?" Dr. Park Soo asked. "Too easy and too quiet. When you conquer a city, there should be noise. Explosions, gunfire, people running. But Seoul was almost silent, like the whole city was holding its breath." Li Hyun touched his device again. The screen showed underground maps of Seoul. subway tunnels, maintenance passages, underground shopping, areas. The map looked like a spider web under the city. Then Sergeant Kim Bo attacked, Kyle said, and his voice shook a little. Tell us about that, Lee Hyun said gently. Kale stared at the tunnel maps on the screen. My squad was guarding a communication station. Important target. 60 warriors, best weapons, perfect position. We should have been safe. Should have. Been, Dr. Park Soo repeated. Kimbo and 20 humans came out of the tunnels. Not the main tunnels we knew about. Smaller ones, maintenance shafts. Places our intelligence said were too small for soldiers. Kyle shook his head. But humans are smaller than us. They fit where we could not go. The screen showed photos of damaged Nethys equipment, burned vehicles, broken weapons, destroyed communication devices. They did not attack us directly, Kale continued. Instead, they attacked our equipment, our vehicles, our communication arrays, very precise strikes. Then they would disappear back into the tunnels before we could respond. Hit-and-run tactics, Lee Hyun said. More than that, every attack was perfectly planned. They knew exactly where to hit us to cause the most damage. They knew our equipment better than some of our own soldiers did. Dr. Park Soo looked confused. How could they know your equipment? They had never seen it before. Kyle was quiet for a long moment. That was what scared us most. Somehow, in just a few hours, humans had learned more about our technology than species that had fought us for years. The screen changed to show timeline maps, hour by hour, day by day, showing how the battle developed, the red dots representing. Nethys forces started strong but slowly got smaller. The blue dots representing humans started small but grew larger and more organized. By the end of the first day, we had lost 30% of our equipment, Kale said. Not to big battles or powerful weapons. To small groups of humans who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. What about the second day? Lee Hyun asked. Worse, much worse. Kyle's hands made fists despite the restraints. Lieutenant Cho Min joined the attacks. She was different from Kim Bo. While he focused on destroying our equipment, she focused on studying it. Studying it how? Her teams would attack our positions, but instead of trying to kill us all, they would steal pieces of our technology. Weapons, communication devices, even parts of our armor. Kyle looked directly at Lee Hyun. Captain, do you understand what I am telling you? In the middle of a battle, while bombs were exploding around them, human soldiers were conducting scientific research. Dr. Park Soo stopped writing and stared at Kale. Research? During combat? Yes. And it worked. By the second day, humans were using modified versions of our own weapons against us. By the third day, they had created hybrid technologies that combined human and Nethys engineering. The screen showed pictures of strange weapons. They looked like Nethys technology, but changed, improved, made more deadly. This should have been impossible, Kale said. It takes our best scientists months to understand captured enemy technology, but humans were doing it in hours. How? Lee Hyun asked. I do not know. That is what terrified us. We could not understand how humans learned so fast. It was like they could look at our technology once and immediately see ways to make it better. The screen showed a map of Seoul on the fourth day. Most of the red dots were gone. The blue dots had grown and connected, forming a network across the whole city. By the fourth day, we were losing, Kyle admitted. Commander An Jae had turned the entire city into a trap. Every street, every building, every tunnel was controlled by humans who knew exactly where we were and what we were doing. How could they track you so well? Dr. Park Sue asked. Lieutenant Cho Min had hacked our communication system. Not just blocked it, actually hacked into it. She was listening to every order we gave, reading every message we sent. Sometimes she knew our battle plans before our own soldiers did. Lee Hyun made more notes. What did your commanders do? They tried to adapt. They changed communication codes, used different frequencies, even went back to using hand signals. Kyle laughed bitterly. It did not matter. Somehow humans always stayed one step ahead of us. The battle lasted 3 weeks, Dr. Park Sue said. What happened in the final week? Kale was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The final week was when we realized we were not fighting humans anymore. What do you mean? Lee Hyun asked. We were fighting something that had learned from 3 weeks of combat with the Nethys Empire. Something that had adapted and evolved and become stronger than it was when the battle started. Kale looked at both humans. By the end, the humans in Seoul were better at urban warfare than we were, better at using our own technology than we were, better at everything. The screen showed the final day of the battle. Almost all the red dots were gone. The blue dots covered the entire map. We did not lose Seoul, Kale said finally. We were absorbed by it. The city turned us into part of itself. Our weapons became human weapons. Our tactics became human tactics. Our technology became human technology. And then, Lee Hyun asked, then we retreated. For the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, the Nethys Empire retreated from a planet we had tried to take. Kyle closed his eyes again. But the worst part was not losing Seoul. What was the worst part? The worst part was knowing that the humans who had fought us were now stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than they had been before we arrived. We had not just failed to conquer them. We had accidentally trained them to be better warriors. The room was quiet, except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Lee Hyun turned off the screen and gathered his devices. Thank you, Kale, he said. This helps us understand. As the humans prepared to leave, Kale called out again. Captain Lee. Yes? Seoul was just one city on your planet. How many other cities learned the same lessons? Lee Hyun paused at the Yaobi door. All of them, Kale. Every battle you fought on Earth taught us something new, and we shared those lessons with everyone. Captain Lee Hyun arrived earlier than usual the next day. He looked tired, like he had not slept well either. Dr. Park Sue followed him, carrying a different device this time, something that looked more complex than her usual note-taking equipment. Kyle, Vorthak watched them set up their equipment. The alien warrior had spent another sleepless night remembering Seoul. Each memory brought back details he had tried to forget. Today we want to hear about the turning point, Lee Hyun said as he sat down. When did you know Seoul was truly lost? Kale did not answer immediately. He stared at the wall behind the humans, seeing things they could not see. Faces from the battle. Moments that still haunted him. There were 3 humans, Kale said finally. 3 humans who showed us that we were fighting something we did not understand. Dr. Park Sue activated her device. Tell us about them. Major Yang Woo, Dr. Bae Sun, and Private Nam Gil. Kale spoke their names slowly, like each one hurt to say. They were the ones who broke us. How? Lee Hyun asked. Kale closed his eyes and let the memories flow. It was the 8th day of the battle. We had been losing ground, but we still controlled the sky. Our command ship was in orbit above Seoul, coordinating all attacks. Completely safe. Or so we thought. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of Dr. Park Soo's recording device. Major Yang Wu led a team of 12 humans in an attack on our command ship, Kale continued. This should have been impossible. Humans had no way to reach orbit. No spacecraft capable of attacking our vessels. But they found a way, Dr. Park Soo said. Yes, they used our own dropships against us. Ships we had abandoned when they were damaged. Dr. Bay's son had spent 3 days studying them, learning how they worked. Kyle opened his eyes and looked directly at Lee Hyun. Captain, this human scientist took technology she had never seen before and not only repaired it, but improved it. Improved it how? She made the ships invisible to our sensors. She increased their speed. She even modified the weapon systems to be more effective against Nethys armor. Kyle shook his head. Our own ships, turned against us by a human who had been studying them for less than a week. Lee Hyun made notes while Dr. Park Soo monitored her recording equipment. Major Yang Wu's team reached our command ship without being detected. Kale continued. They landed in the cargo bay and began moving through the ship. But they did not move like soldiers trying to destroy things. They moved like scientists trying to learn things. What do you mean? Dr. Park Soo asked. Instead of setting explosives or attacking our crew, they connected devices to our computer systems. They downloaded our databases. They copied our star maps, our military protocols, our technology blueprints. Kale's voice got quieter. While the battle raged below them, these humans were stealing thousands of years of Nethys knowledge. How long were they on the ship? Lee Hyun asked. 6 hours. For 6 hours, 12 humans wandered through our most advanced command vessel, taking whatever they wanted, and we never knew they were there. Dr. Park Soo looked up from her device. How is that possible? Surely there were security systems. Kyle laughed, but there was no humor in it. Major Yang Wu's team included a human called Specialist O-Da. She was a communications expert. Somehow she managed to hack our security systems and make them think the human team was part of our crew. During those 6 hours, what happened? On the ground? Lee Hyun asked. That is where Private Nam Gil comes into the story, Kale said, and his voice became even quieter. He was guarding a strategic position in Myeongdong District, a subway entrance that controlled access to 3 different tunnel networks. Kale paused, struggling with the memory. Nam Gil was 19 years old. Fresh out of training, he had been a soldier for less than 6 months. What made him special? Dr. Park Soo asked. Nothing, at first. He was just another young human soldier, but during the battle something happened to him. Something that still gives me nightmares. Lee Hyun leaned forward. What happened? On the 8th day, my forces launched a major assault on his position. 300 Nethys warriors against 1 human boy and his squad of 20 soldiers. Kale's hands clenched into fists. We killed his entire squad in the first hour. Nam Gil was alone, wounded, surrounded by 300 enemy soldiers. What did he do? Dr. Park Soo asked, though her voice suggested she was not sure she wanted to know. He smiled, Kyle whispered. Just like the humans in the subway station I told you about yesterday, but this time was different. This time the smile lasted for 18 hours. 18 hours? Lee Hyun repeated. 18 hours of continuous combat. 1 human against 300 aliens. He should have died in the first minute. Instead, he killed 47 of my warriors and wounded over 100 more. The room was completely silent now, except for the beeping of the recording device. "How?" Dr. Park Sue asked. "He learned," Kyle said simply. "Every time we attacked him, he learned something new. Every weapon we used against him, he found a way to capture and use against us. Every tactic we tried, he developed a counter-tactic." "In 18 hours?" Lee Hyun asked. "Yes, but it was more than that. Namgil was not just learning our tactics. He was learning our psychology. By the end of the first day, he knew how we thought. He could predict what we would do before we did it." Kale stared at the wall again, seeing the battle in his mind. The worst part was watching him change. At the beginning of the fight, he was scared, desperate, just trying to survive. But as the hours passed, he became something else. What did he become? Dr. Park Sue asked. "A perfect soldier. Not human, not Nethys, but something that combined the best of both. He used our weapons better than we did. He moved through the battlefield like he had been fighting aliens his whole life. He anticipated our every move." Lee Hyun made more notes. "What happened to your 300 warriors?" "By the end of 18 hours, only 60 were still able to fight. The rest were dead or wounded. And Namgil was still alive, still fighting, still learning." Kale looked directly at the humans. "Do you understand what I am telling you? One human boy had defeated a force that should have conquered him in minutes." "Where was Major Yang Wu during this time?" Dr. Park Sue asked. "Still on our command ship, still stealing our secrets. But the real damage was being done on the ground by Dr. Bay's son." "What was she doing?" "Building impossible things," Kyle said. "While Namgil held his position and Major Yang Wu raided our ship, Dr. Bay's son was in a basement laboratory, creating hybrid weapons that combined human and Nethys technology." "What kind of weapons?" "Energy shields that were stronger than ours. Projectile weapons that could penetrate our armor. Communication devices that could hack our networks in real time." Kyle shook his head. "But the most terrifying thing she built was not a weapon at all." "What was it?" Lee Hyun asked. "A learning machine. A computer system that could analyze Nethys technology and immediately understand how to improve it. Dr. Bay's son had created artificial intelligence that could outthink our best engineers." Dr. Park Sue stopped monitoring her device and stared at Kale. "She built AI during a battle?" "Yes, and she did it using parts from our own computers, combined with human programming techniques we had never seen before." Kale's voice was barely audible now. By the end of the 8th day, Dr. Bay's son's laboratory was producing weapons and defensive systems that were superior to anything the Nethys Empire had ever created. "What happened on the 9th day?" Lee Hyun asked. "The 3 humans changed everything. Major Yang Wu returned from our command ship with complete intelligence about our entire fleet. Namgil had proven that humans could defeat Nethys forces even when outnumbered 300 to 1, and Dr. Bay's son had created technology that made human forces superior to ours." Kyle closed his eyes again. "That was when we knew Seoul was lost. Not because we were losing soldiers or territory, but because we were losing the technological advantage that had made the Nethys Empire powerful." "The humans had become stronger than you," Dr. Park Sue said. "Worse than that. They had become us, but better. They had taken everything that made us dangerous and improved it. And they had done it in 9 days." Lee Hyun gathered his notes and prepared to leave. "What happened to those 3 humans after Seoul?" Kale opened his eyes and looked at the captain. Major Yang Wu became the leader of human space forces. He used the intelligence he stole from our command ship to build a human fleet that could challenge ours. And Dr. Bei-sun? She became the chief of human weapons development. Every piece of technology we had, she improved. Every weapon we used, she made a better version for humans to use. What about Private Nam-gil? Kale was quiet for a long moment. Nam-gil became something we had no word for in our language, a human who could fight like an alien, think like an alien, but still remain completely human. Where is he now, Doctor? Park Soo asked. Training other humans to fight like he learned to fight, teaching them to defeat alien forces even when outnumbered. Kyle looked at both humans in the room. There are now thousands of humans who can do what Nam-gil did in 18 hours. As the humans prepared to leave, Kale called out one more time. Captain Lee. Yes? Those 3 humans destroyed more than just our control of Seoul. They destroyed our belief that we were superior to other species. Is that why you surrendered? Lee Hyun asked. The 4th day brought a change in the interrogation room. Captain Lee Hyun arrived with several other humans. They wore different uniforms and carried more recording equipment. Dr. Park Soo was there too, but she looked more serious than before. Kale. Vorthak studied the new faces. These humans had the same calm, patient expressions as Captain Lee, but something in their eyes was different. They looked like people who had seen battle themselves. Today we have colleagues joining us, Lee Hyun said as he sat down. Colonel Park Jin from the African Theater and Specialist Da from our Communications Division. Kale recognized the second name immediately. Da, she was the one who hacked our systems during the Seoul battle. The human woman nodded. She was younger than Kale had expected, with short hair and quick, intelligent eyes. I was part of Major Yang Wu's team. I remember you, Kale Vorthak. Your communications were educational. Educational? Kale asked. We learned a lot about Nethys technology by listening to your transmissions, Da said simply. Your military protocols were quite sophisticated. We improved them. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. These humans spoke about stealing and improving alien technology like it was normal conversation. We want to understand something, Colonel Park Jin said. His voice was deep and careful. Seoul was not the only battle. The pattern we saw there, did it happen everywhere? Kale did not want to answer. Talking about Seoul had been bad enough. Talking about all the battles would be much worse. Yes, he said finally. Everywhere we fought humans, the same things happened. Tell us about Africa, Colonel Park Jin said. Tell us about the mining operation. Kyle closed his eyes. Another memory he had tried to forget. The Kalahari Desert. We needed rare metals for our ship repairs. The area was empty, just sand and rocks. No human settlements for hundreds of miles. But humans came anyway, Dr. Park Soo said. Yes. Your Colonel Park Jin arrived with 200 soldiers and some mining equipment. We had 5,000 warriors guarding the mining site. Kyle opened his eyes and looked at Colonel Park Jin. You should have been no threat to us at all, Colonel. Park Jin smiled slightly. Should have been. What did you do that we did not expect? Da asked. You did not try to attack our mining operation directly, Kale said. Instead, you studied it. For 3 days, your humans watched us work. They learned how our mining equipment functioned. They understood our extraction processes. And then? Lee Hyun asked. Then they showed us that our own equipment could be used as weapons against us. Kale's voice got quieter. Colonel Park Jin somehow reprogrammed our mining lasers to overload. When we tried to extract metals from the ground, the equipment exploded. Colonel Park Jin nodded. Your mining technology was very efficient, but it was not designed with proper safety protocols. Easy to modify. It took our engineers years to develop that technology, Kale said. You destroyed it in 3 days. We did not destroy it, Colonel Park Jin corrected. We improved it. The mining equipment we captured now works better than your original designs. Kale stared at the human colonel. You turned our mining operation into a weapon factory. Yes, very efficient. Your extraction lasers make excellent defensive weapons when properly modified. But that was not the worst part, Kale continued. The worst part was what you did to our supply ships. Oda leaned forward with interest. The supply ships were my favorite part of that operation. You hacked them, Kale said accusingly. Not just their communication systems. You hacked their navigation, their cargo systems, even their life support. Your ships had very sophisticated computer networks, Oda said, but they were designed for efficiency, not security, easy to access once we understood the basic architecture. She turned our supply ships against us, Kyle said to the others. Ships that were supposed to bring us food and ammunition instead began delivering supplies to human forces. Colonel Park Jin smiled. Oda's programming was very creative. For 2 weeks, our soldiers ate Nethys military rations while your soldiers went hungry. How many supply ships did you capture? Dr. Park Soo asked. All of them, Oda said simply. Once I understood how to hack one ship, I could hack any ship using the same basic systems. Your entire supply fleet became our supply fleet. Kyle felt sick thinking about it. In 2 weeks, you had turned our mining operation into your weapon factory and our supply fleet into your delivery service. Very efficient, Colonel Park Jin agreed. What happened to the 5,000 Nethys warriors? Lee Hyun asked. They surrendered, Kale said quietly. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they had no food, no ammunition, and no way to call for help. Oda had cut off all their communications. I redirected their communications, Oda corrected. Every message they tried to send to request help was instead sent to us. We always knew what they needed before they could ask for it. Kyle looked around the room at the human faces. They all looked so calm, so reasonable. But they were describing the complete destruction of a Nethys military operation like it was a simple engineering problem they had solved. This pattern happened everywhere? Dr. Park Soo asked. Yes, every battle followed the same progression. First, humans would study our technology and tactics. Then they would find ways to use our own equipment against us. Finally, they would improve everything to work better than it had originally. What about the battle stations? Lee Hyun asked. The orbital platforms? Kale did not want to talk about the orbital platforms. That memory was the worst of all. Lieutenant Cho Min led that operation, he said finally. Oda looked excited. Cho Min was brilliant. Her work on the orbital platforms inspired many of my later projects. What did Lieutenant Cho Min do? Dr. Park Soo asked. She convinced our orbital battle stations to destroy themselves, Kale said in a whisper. The room was completely quiet. How? Colonel Park Jin asked. She hacked into the command systems and made the stations think they were under attack by enemy Nethys forces. The platforms began firing on each other, thinking they were defending themselves. Oda nodded approvingly. Elegant solution, much more efficient than trying to attack them directly. In 1 day, Lieutenant Cho Min destroyed half of our orbital. Defenses without firing a single human weapon, Kyle continued. The platforms did all the work themselves. What happened to the other half? Lee Hyun asked. They surrendered. When the station commanders realized what had happened, they decided it was safer to give up than to risk being destroyed by their own defensive systems. Dr. Park Soo made notes as Kale spoke. Were there any battles where humans did not follow this pattern? Kyle thought for a long moment. No. In every engagement, humans found ways to turn our advantages into disadvantages. Our superior technology became weapons for them to use. Our better training became tactics for them to copy and improve. Our greater numbers became supply sources for them to capture. Why do you think humans were so effective? Colonel Park Jin asked. Because you do not think like any other species we have encountered, Kale said. Most species, when they see superior technology, they try to defend against it or avoid it. But humans see superior technology and immediately start figuring out how to steal it and make it better. Is that wrong? Oda asked. It is terrifying, Kale said. Other species fight to win. Humans fight to learn. Every battle makes you stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Lee Hyun gathered his notes. What did your commanders do when they realized this pattern? They tried to adapt. They changed tactics, used different technologies, even tried to avoid direct confrontation with human forces. Kyle shook his head. Nothing worked. No matter what we did, humans found ways to study it, understand it, and use it against us. How? Long did it take for your military leaders to understand what they were facing? Dr. Park Soo asked. Too long. By the time they realized that humans were not just another species to conquer, but something entirely new, it was too late to change strategy. What would have been a better strategy? Colonel Park Jin asked. Kale looked at the human colonel with surprise. You want military advice from a defeated enemy? We want to understand how other species might try to fight us in the future, Lee Hyun said. Ah. Kale understood now. You are still learning, still preparing for the next threat. Always, Oda said cheerfully. Kale thought about the question seriously. The only way to fight humans successfully would be to avoid giving them anything to learn from. No advanced technology they could capture. No sophisticated tactics they could copy. No complex strategies they could study and improve. Primitive warfare? Dr. Park Soo asked. Yes. Fight with rocks and sticks. Give humans nothing they could use to become stronger. Kyle paused. But even then, I think humans would find ways to make better rocks and sticks. The humans in the room shared looks that Kyle could not interpret. Is that why the war ended when it did? Lee Hyun asked. Because your leaders realized they were making humans stronger? Yes. Every day we fought, humans learned more about our technology, our tactics, our weaknesses. Every day we continued the war, we were accidentally training our enemies to be better at fighting us. So you decided to surrender, Colonel Park Jin said. We decided to stop accidentally creating the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, Kale corrected. On the 5th day, only Captain Lee Hyun came to the interrogation room. He looked different somehow, more serious. He carried a single device and sat down across from Kale Vorthak without saying anything for several minutes. Kale studied the human, Captain's face. Something had changed. The patient, calm expression was still there, but underneath it was something else, something that made Kale nervous. Today is our last conversation, Lee Hyun said finally. Last? Kyle asked. Are you sending me back to my people? Yes. But first there is something I need to tell you. Something about why these conversations really happened. Kale felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What do you mean? Li Hyun activated his device and set it on the table between them. We were not interrogating you to learn about Nethys' military capabilities. We already knew everything about your technology and tactics. Then why? We were testing something. A theory about human psychological warfare. Li Hyun looked directly into Kale's eyes. We wanted to see if we could convince an enemy warrior to carry a specific message back to his people. Kale stared at the human captain. What message? The message you will carry back to the Nethys Empire. The story you will tell about human capabilities. Li Hyun paused. Everything you have told us over the past 4 days is true. But it is not complete. What do you mean, not complete? You have told us about the battles you witnessed, but you do not know about the battles that ended the war. Li Hyun touched his device, and a screen appeared on the wall. Let me show you what really happened. The screen showed space, stars and planets and ships. Kyle recognized some of the vessels as Nethys warships, but others were unfamiliar. After Seoul, after the mining operation, after all the battles you have described, the Nethys Empire made one final attempt to defeat humanity, Li Hyun said. I do not remember any final battle, Kyle said. That is because it lasted only 6 hours, Li Hyun replied. 6 hours from the time your fleet arrived in Earth's solar system to the time they surrendered completely. The screen showed massive Nethys warships approaching Earth, hundreds of vessels, the largest fleet the Empire had ever assembled. Admiral Shin Yu commanded our response. Li Hyun continued. She had learned everything we could from the previous battles. She understood Nethys technology better than most Nethys engineers did. What did she do? Kale asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. She did not attack your fleet. Instead, she invited them to attack our defenses. The screen showed Earth's orbital defenses. They looked small compared to the massive Nethys fleet. Your Admiral Cortex was confident, Li Hyun said. He had brought enough firepower to destroy 10 planets. Earth's defenses looked primitive compared to his fleet. They were primitive, Kyle said. I saw the intelligence reports. Human space. Technology was centuries behind ours. The intelligence reports were correct. Our technology was primitive, but Admiral Shin Yu had learned something important from studying your equipment. What? She learned that advanced technology is only useful if you can control it. The screen showed the beginning of the battle. Nethys ships fired massive energy weapons at Earth's defenses. But something was wrong. The human defensive platforms were not being destroyed. How? Kale whispered. Engineer Lim Hae had spent months studying captured Nethys technology, not to copy it, but to understand its weaknesses. Li Hyun touched his device and the image changed. She discovered that your energy weapons could be turned back on themselves. The screen now showed Nethys energy blasts being reflected back. At the ships that had fired them, the massive warships were being destroyed by their own weapons. This is impossible, Kyle said. Our weapons do not work that way. They do now. Engineer Lim Hae found ways to modify the energy frequencies so that your own shields would not recognize the reflected attacks as friendly fire. Kyle watched in horror as ship after ship of the Nethys fleet was destroyed by its own weaponry. But that was just the beginning, Li Hyun continued. While your ships were being destroyed by reflected weapons, Admiral Shin Yu was implementing the real plan. What plan? Complete capture of your remaining fleet. The screen showed something that made Kale's blood run cold. Human ships were docking with Nethys vessels, but these were not boarding actions. The human ships were somehow connecting to the Nethys vessels and taking control of them. How? Kyle asked again. Oda had spent the entire war learning about your computer systems. By the time of the final battle, she could take control of any Nethys ship in minutes. You captured our fleet? We absorbed it. Within 3 hours, every surviving Nethys vessel was under human control. Li Hyun paused. Your Admiral Cortex found himself trapped on his own flagship, watching human engineers improve his ship's weapons and defenses in real time. Kyle could not speak. The images on the screen showed the impossible. The largest fleet in Nethys, history being turned into a human fleet in a matter of hours. What happened to Admiral Cortex? Kale finally asked. He is here, on this ship, 3 decks below us. He has been helping engineer Lim Hai improve Nethys ship designs. Helping? You mean forced to help? No, Kale. He is helping voluntarily. Because he realized the same thing you are realizing right now. What? That humans do not just defeat their enemies. They absorb them. They learn from them. They become stronger by incorporating everything useful their enemies can teach them. The screen showed the final moments of the battle. The few remaining Nethys ships that had not been captured were fleeing the solar system. 6 hours, Li Hyun said. The largest fleet in Nethys history, defeated and absorbed in 6 hours. Kyle stared at the screen in disbelief. What happened? Next? Admiral Shin Yu used your captured fleet to visit the Nethys homeworld. She attacked our home planet? No, she delivered a message. The screen changed to show Nethys Prime, the homeworld of the Empire. Human ships, formerly Nethys ships, hung in orbit above the planet. What message? Kyle asked. That the war was over, that humanity had proven it could defend itself, and that any future attacks would result in the complete absorption of whatever forces were sent against Earth. Did the Nethys government believe her? They believed the evidence. Admiral Shin Yu had brought 1,000 Nethys warships to their homeworld. Ships that now flew human flags and were crewed by humans who understood Nethys technology better than the Nethys did. Kyle was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. What are you telling me, Captain Lee? I am telling you the truth about what happened, and I am telling you why you are being sent back to your people. Why? Because we want the Nethys Empire to understand exactly what they faced. We want them to know that humans do not just win wars. We evolve from them. Li Hyun stood up and walked to the window that showed Earth in the distance. Look at our planet. Kyle. 6 months ago, humanity had never fought an interstellar war. We had never seen alien technology. We had never faced an enemy from another world. Kale looked out the window at the blue and green planet. Now look at this ship, Li Hyun continued. The ship you are imprisoned on. Do you know what it is? A human vessel. It was the Nethys flagship, Admiral Cortex's personal command ship. We captured it, improved it, and now it serves as the center of human space defense. Kale felt dizzy. You are telling me I am imprisoned on my own people's ship? You are imprisoned on a ship that used to belong to your people. Now it belongs to humanity, like everything else your empire brought to this war. Li Hyun returned to his chair and looked directly at Kale. When you return to the Nethys Empire, you will tell them about the battles you witnessed. You will describe how humans learned from every encounter. You will explain how we turned your advantages into our weapons. And then? And then you will tell them about this conversation. You will explain that everything you learned about human capabilities during this war is now outdated information. Outdated? Yes. Because the humans who fought the Nethys Empire 6 months ago no longer exist. They have been replaced by humans who learned from fighting the Nethys Empire. Kyle understood now. The cold feeling in his stomach had spread through his entire body. "You want me to warn them?" he said. "We want you to educate them. We want every species in the galaxy to understand what they will face if they threaten Earth." What will they face? They will face humans who have already fought and absorbed the technology and tactics of the Nethys Empire. Humans who will study their attackers, learn from them, and become stronger than them in real time. Li Hyun gathered his device and prepared to leave. "One more thing, Kyle. The interrogation device I have been carrying, it has been recording everything we discussed. Not just your words, but your emotional responses, your psychological reactions, even your physiological stress patterns. Why? Because we wanted to understand how the knowledge of human capabilities affects alien psychology. Your responses have helped us develop new forms of psychological warfare." Kyle stared at the human captain. "You have been using me as a test subject. You have been helping us learn how to convince future enemies to surrender without fighting. Your fear, your growing understanding of human capabilities, your psychological breakdown over the past 5 days, all of it has been valuable data. For what purpose?